things like that. So that's really fantastic. Then afterwards, there's obviously just a lot of conversation between all of the people who attend the meetings with each other, and basically networking, giving information to each other. Quite a few schools have chatted to each other at the Moodle meetings, and then what happens is they actually go to each other's schools and see how it's working in their school environment. So it's actually moving out of the meetings, which is fantastic, so that people can really see how it's working in the actual space. In Hong Kong, again, I mean, every place is unique, is because there's a lot of international schools. The international schools are the ones who are more involved in the learning management systems. The local school system doesn't really have strong links to it. They're not, to be honest, that IT savvy yet. They haven't put a lot of money into it. So it really is the international schools that are leading the way, and they're the ones who have most of the information. Obviously, being international schools, that most of the teachers and coordinators of within the school are expats, but not necessarily all of them. So they've come from different areas of the world, come together, and so it's great because there's so much different information. They've come from different parts. And what is good is that the local community are starting to sort of pick up on it a bit and realise the importance of it, especially in the university sector. The universities are picking it up really quite well, but the schooling system not as so much, which is a bit unfortunate. Just thinking what else. Oh, they're almost there. The main thing...
yeah, Wendy, we're probably about a minute away.
Yeah.
A minute? Okay. Is that you need someone to have the time to organise the meetings and be the communication person. For the
probably you and I talking about one.
Yeah.
So for the Hong Kong one, I'm the communication person because I work in Moodle and I have time. I'm not in a school environment. I actually have the time to run conferences and things. So it's great if you can find someone who can be the communicator amongst the group, because there is a little bit of communication, a little bit of admin, nothing major, but it really needs to be someone who's got that time. Sounds like Shane might be ready. Do you have any other questions from me yet? I imagine not. So
Yeah,
oh, ready?
I can't get the webcam going for you guys. Or can you see that? We don't have the little thing at the bottom.
No, you're not there.
Oh, hang on, we're not the presenter. That's why Andy is.
Oh, sorry.
Maybe because of our connection, though. So,
Tunneling?
Yeah. We're reconnecting.
Sorry, I'm probably kicking you off now.
No, you're good. If you can jump in, we can use yours.
Yeah.
I can make you a presenter and.
Where are we?
So you're going to move to Andrew's computer?
Hey, Wendy. Sorry, we keep getting booted, so.
Can you try go to Andrew?
I don't even know if you can hear me still.
Yeah. Can't you hear me? Oh, dear.
Yeah, I can hear everyone.
Well, we might kick off. We have to do this just with audio, so my apologies, everyone. Yeah. Great. So the meeting's finished here, and it was actually a really good meeting. And sorry it ran over time, but it's probably one of the good ones with quite a bit of discussion and some great things shown. So, but as I'd written in the chat, there was some sensitive student information on the screen, so they specifically asked we didn't show what was happening here, or do the conversation as well. So actually, a lot of people have had to run off because the meeting's run off over time. So I've have a couple of people joining us.
Yeah.
Coming back. Yeah. Yeah. So what I thought we'd just do is just talk about. I know Wendy's probably talked very briefly about the Hong Kong, the Moodle user group that happens here. Oh, great. Thanks, Wens. So that's half my notes gone then. So that's probably good. I would think I've got Andrew Chu sitting here next to me. Hello, if you want.
Hi. Yeah.
And I'll get Andrew in a minute about his organisation, where he works, and that. Yeah, I from my point of view, I think the Moodle user groups. It's at the end of the day, it's actually just networking. It's just people who have a common interest. There's something in common, and we can share ideas, we can share problems, and there's not one person in the world has all the answers to anything. So that's the advantage for these meetings. As an organisation, so I work with Pukunui. We've run different Moodle user groups in Australia before. So probably had met some of you at those as well. I think every Moodle user group runs slightly differently. It really depends on the people who can access, who can get there, and what their needs are. We had one running in Perth in Australia for quite a while, and honestly, that was a great reason to get together and have pizza and beer. And usually, someone would have a presentation, that they would share about what they're doing. So I think the Hong Kong one used to run years ago, didn't it? We had something running.
Yeah, there was one running.
Yeah.
And I remember we met a couple times in a pub.
Yeah.
So yeah, we always meet in pubs.
Oh, yeah. Yeah.
Yes, I did. Okay.
But we basically got the Hong Kong one running. Well, we're trying to get it running again. So it's very early days. It's probably the 4th meeting we've had, maybe.
Yeah.
Yeah. So Andrew and Crispian can come around and join us. So you can all see us on Andrew's webcam. Is that right? If someone can type in the chat.
Yeah. Yeah, it's good. I mean, you've not been to many.
No.
Yeah.
One or two, I think.
Should we kill the?
Yeah,
Can we?
Yeah.
Yeah.
It's a sunny day here.
Yeah. Can someone just type in the chat? Can you get the webcam? Andrew's showing his webcam and using my audio. Is that coming through okay? No, good. So hi, I'm Shane. This is Andrew Chu, and Crispian, who is going to join us in a minute. So it'll be the three of us. We actually don't have much time left, so I thought I would ask these two gentlemen, actually. So you, Andrew, you're putting you on the spot because I haven't prepared them. Just, I guess, who you are, where you work, and what your role is at your organisation.
Yeah.
Yeah, we're going to start with...
Tech coordinator at the American International School. I presented just 2 hours ago. So
oh, yes,
watch
you
that
did.
recording.
Yeah.
And you'll know what we do with Moodle. Yeah.
And
Hi guys.
Yeah.
So my name is Crispian. I'm the learning technology facilitator at a school called Sha Tin College in Hong Kong. Sha Tin College is part of a larger foundation of 22 schools here in Hong Kong, the ESF, English Schools Foundation. I do a little bit of work for the secondary schools across the foundation as well.
Yeah. And in terms of ESF, so can you describe what that is as a structure? Because it is quite big. And,
So I mean, ultimately, we're sort of a legacy issue in that we were set up under the British government when they were here in Hong Kong back in the late 60s, and sort of as partly government funded, partly fee paying. And obviously, since then, we continue to exist past handover in 1997, and so now we are a set a group of 22 schools, ranging from kindergartens through to secondary education, mostly IB curriculum, but not entirely. We're moving in the direction of becoming completely IB. From PYP through to a DP, but not quite yet. So we're becoming fully independent from government, but that's taken some time. There's some politics behind all that. But that's essentially what we are. So we cater now to expats, but also local Chinese as well.
Sure. Okay. And Andrew, your school.
We're a much smaller, independent international school, the American International. We run the whatever the American curriculum happens to be, from early childhood through to grade 12. That's pretty much That's in a nutshell. Yeah, 800 kids.
Okay.
Yeah.
And I guess for both of you, just asking a question, well, two questions, I guess. Why, you obviously both use Moodle, that's why we're part in these meetings, but why, I guess, how did Moodle get into your schools, and how does it form part of, usually it's part of a bigger picture, so how does it fit into all the other software that you use and all that? Maybe start with Andrew.
Yeah. I mean, it was put in maybe 10, 12 years ago at our school, but I think we've progressively used it more and more. So when I first started 7 years ago at school, it was used by a few people as a tool that, you know, if you wanted to use this, then great. And we are at a stage now where every course in the high school and the middle school is, you know, has a Moodle course to it. In the high school, all of our grading is done through the Moodle gradebook, so it's a very high adoption that it's moved into. Yeah.
Okay.
And it fits in because it's, you know, it provides that learning management platform. Particularly, we've gone BYOT just this year, so every kid bringing in their own device as a requirement. The year before was sort of a soft opening up. We had Wi-Fi available, and kids sort of started to bring their own devices. So we had maybe 75% of our kids bring in devices anyway. So it became, so Moodle's really allowed teachers for the learning, to offer up whatever they need to do and extend that classroom into that space.
Okay.
Yeah.
Awesome. Crispin, because Crispin, as actually one of the people who just presented at this meeting about their setup, so you probably have to repeat some of what you've just done.
Okay. So we, probably not entirely a similar story to what Andrew just said, but Moodle installation started going in, I suppose, about 10 years ago, again, foundation, depending on the school. Probably the most recent was about 8 years ago, so we're, you know, all the schools now have a Moodle installation. With single sign-on through to Google Edu domains. So again, all schools use those, and like all things, you know, there's an uptake. It takes some time to get it into schools, and some schools had them in advance of going one-to-one. We're all now one-to-one with laptops, certainly in the secondary section, and increasingly so in the primary schools. So of course, it comes into its own when we had all the laptops in the hands, and, you know, kids are coming in, and they can no longer. Now it's a photocopy and take home documents and that sort of stuff, or wait till they got home and check their emails at home. You know, now of course they can log on in class, and as you will know, on the course pages we can host a whole range of kind of lesson materials. So for us, I mean, we've heavily customized Moodle. We've added elements of an MIS on top of it. So, you know, we're trying to build around a single child, if you like, as much data as we possibly can, and Moodle, the course data is just one part of that. So depending on the school, some of the MIS customizations, you know, integrate with things like course pages and so on. We don't tend to use the gradebook particularly. We do tend to do grading in our own customizations, but I suppose for us really, I mean, as lots of other third-party tools have come along, Moodle has become the kind of core. So it's, if you like, functioning as a conduit for us. So all kids will come into school, and pretty much the first thing they do is they'll log into Moodle. And from there, they'll single sign on to things like their mail with Gmail, Google, and so on. Go through to their Google Documents. They might go through the course pages from there, jump out to Google Documents. So there's a lot of kind of symbiotic use. But what we say to teachers is that, you know, for every course, there must be a Moodle course page presence with key documents, and students have a single place to go before they're then jumping out to whatever else they might be jumping out to. So we allow quite a lot of flexibility around that. You know, teachers using Google Sites, using WordPress sites, and so on, all kinds of other third-party tools, but it's all linked back to that core Moodle course page.
Yeah, sort of glues it all together.
Yeah, that's right. Yeah. And we found that strategy has evolved, just as we found, you know, teachers coming along getting excited with new tools and wanting to use them. And all of that's fine as long as, of course, it's still navigable by kids. Yeah. And ultimately, the VLE pages, the Moodle pages, provide us with that.
Do either of you in your organisations, do you restrict the different types of tools that teachers can use? Because I imagine, you know, when you're teaching, you find a particular tool that you think is great, but it may not fit into all the other things that you've set up centrally. So do you place restrictions on teachers, or do you try to encourage them to use the tools you've got there as much as possible?
I'd say as much as possible we try to encourage them to use them. I said with the proviso that everything is routed back to the course page. You know, I think what we've thought philosophically is that we don't want to restrict the excitement that teachers get when they find a new tool. And also, it's a test bed. You know, it might be that they find a great tool that's really valuable for other teachers, and that, you know, certainly we're crowdsourcing, I suppose, in a sense. Then, you know, if it's just left to me to go and do that, I'll come up with 10 cool tools. But if I've got, you know, 5,000 staff, they're going to come up with lots more. And so we try and, you know, share that and cross-pollinate across the foundation as much as possible. So generally, we let people run with those things. Occasionally, you know, we do need to step in and just say, right, you know, there are issues here that you haven't yet thought about, whether it's, you know, data privacy issues and so on. And we find that when we go into schools, you know, what we tend to do is need to rein things back in every now and again, so that we make sure we have a sort of coherent approach. But generally, then we let them sort of expand out and come up with new tools.
Yeah.
Yeah, and I think it's similar. What's interesting is I think Moodle used to be for us the main platform, and it still is in a way. But we really stretched it over a lot. You know, you served your files there, you served your content there. You might get your forums on there, you might do your messaging on there, everything. And I think what's happened now is there are so many tools that do a lot of those things a lot better, but not necessarily the other. Like they specialize in one thing, right? And why can't we use that? Or you know. And so what? Like for me, this last half year and then going into the next year, what we're really doing in particular sections of the school is we're sort of refinding where Moodle is in our, you know, larger picture. Like, is it? I think it's got a sweet spot, and particularly when you've got that where you've got to track, say, the individual students, what students are doing, that progress, the conditional, anything once you're starting to do something with conditional pathways and things. I think Moodle's the right tool for it. But there's a lot before that could be done by other things. So if you just wanted a website, why not a Wix, a Weebly? You know, I think Google Sites teachers are very happy to use something like that, and less so something, you know, that feels a bit clunky like Moodle. Yeah. So we're redefining where it is.
Yeah, I'd say that probably what's happened is that we've reached a kind of happy medium between very, you know, bespoke, detailed uses of Moodle tools like quiz, for example. So we have some teachers that really love what you can do with quizzes. You know, there's almost nothing you can't do with it if you know how to do it and spend a bit of time. And so some teachers have gone in and spent a lot of time creating these quizzes, and they use them year on year on year. And so when a teacher is confident, okay, this resource is something I'm going to come back to, it's going to be used by all of the teachers in the department, it's really worth investing the time, then I'm going to get a lot out of the complexity that Moodle offers. What we tend to find is that with teachers that aren't interested in building those things for the long term, they tend to teach in a different style. We have, you know, a teacher that isn't interested in sharing it with the rest of the department. They'll tend to use quicker, easier tools and just accept the fact having got the flexibility that Moodle will offer them. And again, you know, we're generally happy to allow and facilitate that, provide us routed back to core Moodle. So, you know, we have sort of happy medium between quick on the fly stuff, which tends to be outside of Moodle, versus longer term investment stuff, which tends to be more often than not inside Moodle.
Yep. Okay. Got some questions here, but I've just got one more to follow up, and then we might head to some of these questions. So I know you've just spoken about what you're doing at the ESF and how Moodle does work with these other systems, integrating it, and I know your system as well. You have other things that you set up. So in terms of that whole solution, obviously there's a lot of integrations with Moodle, a lot of extra plugins, modules you've added in. How does that affect the whole system when you go through upgrades? You know, obviously it's not one core piece of software you now have to upgrade. It's thinking about these systems and how they work together.
It's interesting because I think we're probably different ends of the spectrum there.
Probably, yeah.
Yeah, you guys have got IT teams, and you know, and we've got pretty much nobody. So we try to third-party outsource all the things that we can, just so you know, we outsource our Moodle to be hosted elsewhere, and provided we can get our students in and it's running all the time, then we're happy.
Yeah. Yeah, it's a challenge, and of course, the bigger we grow, the more we customize, the more we plug in via APIs to other systems, the more that fear is there that you know, people change things, and it does happen. It tends to mean that we're often a little bit behind the kind of Moodle installation upgrades that other schools, that, you know, sort of single installation situation might be on. You know, we're up to 2.9 now, so we're not too far behind the curve, but it's, you know.
Yeah, we're on 2.9.
We're often, yes. But there is always that kind of hold you back moment when you do these things. And we found, I mean, you know, as I said, we've got lots of integration with things like Google, and Google, of course, just changed their APIs when they feel like it, and they don't ask us what we feel about it. So every now and again, those things do come through, and they affect us, and it can be a bit of a big deal, depending on how widely used that particular tool is. And sometimes these things come and go, and we go out to schools and say, look, guys, this is a big deal for you, and if it is, we'll put some manpower into it, and if it's not, okay, probably then sorry, but you can't use that anymore, because we're not going to invest the time to keep it up and running. But touch wood, so far we've not had any major problems. But we, as Andrew says, we do have a dedicated team of people sat up in the centre working on that, and that's just the benefit of having 22 schools and the size of the foundation we have, which is not possible for.
Yeah. Okay. All right. Might head to some of the questions that are in here, and feel free to ask questions if anyone wants to.
I was going to.
Oh, yeah, please do.
Because this was a conversation that came up in the Moodle users group, maybe the last one, actually. And that was that, I think there's so many people using Moodle, and then perhaps other tools and everything, but that they often use it to such a sort of maybe a limited or low level. They know they can go further. But they get that 20%, first 20% usage. They want to go further, and you hit a barrier, or you get stuck. And the conversation went that, where do you go to find good use? Like, where is there good examples? And there are a number of examples. I know Moodle has a couple of sites and examples, but I think sometimes what the conversation went was, how do you find good examples that are relevant to you, that you as a teacher can make sense of, and therefore go, right, I want to do that. Or,
Yeah. But then would that be part of the advantage of these Moodle user groups is, so I was next to someone today and I could see them just taking notes and notes of your presentation, because one, I know what they're trying to implement, and you were actually meeting a need, you'd never seen that way about doing it. So is that one of the advantages of these kind of meetings, is just seeing what others are doing? Yeah.
And maybe, and this came up as well in one of the Moodle user groups, maybe the language that we use is wrong. It's not necessarily the Moodle user group, but it's the focus. It's not on Moodle. It's on the teaching, or how do you, maybe it's e-learning or whatever it is. Like, that was an interesting meeting.
Yeah. And having a pub doesn't hurt either.
Having a pub never hurts.
Yeah, that's right.
It usually helps.
Yeah. All right, just a couple of questions in here from Andy Chaplin. Is there any resistance from teachers to the introduction of online learning?
Yes. I'm trying to decide which bit to sort of talk about. Yeah, there is. I think less and less. And those concerns come in all sorts of shapes and forms. Sometimes it's just screen time. Screen time is a concern. How much time kids are spending in front of screens, and there's sort of general sort of moral panic that's around technology generally, I think, especially in education with kids. So we spend a lot of time educating staff, talking about the science in many cases, and trying to sort of combat some of the slightly knee-jerk comments that come from less well-researched articles with good evidence and science, and also parents. We've done a lot of work with parents about it, and what I tend to find is that once you find something that really blows a teacher away in terms of what you can do with something that's happening online with a digital device versus what they were doing, then they're sold. But you've got to find that sweet spot. You've got to find that one thing. And once you find the one thing, they realise, okay, there's something in this that's of value. If what you do, and I've seen this done by lots of people, is you push the technology because it's technology, and what you end up doing is just sort of replicating what's happening offline, then I think quite rightly teachers look at that and go, well, is that really much better? And we probably had a sort of pendulum when things like online learning first came in, and we first had the VLE, and we first had laptop devices and so on. People were just using them because they were technology that they had and they didn't have before, and so they were experimenting with them, and they probably now in reflection realised, this isn't the best way of doing that. But they wouldn't have known that until they tried it. And so I think that the pendulum's pretty swung back now. Teachers are much more confident in our schools of making choices where they will say, no, this is going to be done on pen and paper, old school, and this is where we really want the power of online learning. So I think that by and large, we're now kind of over the hump in that one. But it has taken time.
I would add also that I think it's really important when teachers, rather than you find what works, when they can find it themselves. And I think one of the things that I've noticed this year with BYOT being in is you just get to that point where, as a teacher in the room, unless you're utilizing those devices in the room, you feel like I'm not quite as comfortable. I know this could be easier, and all of a sudden you have that. I need to make a change, and I think sometimes you just need to have the right kind of environment whereby a teacher goes, I need to make a change. And it's great when teachers find it themselves. They start asking each other. It could be small steps. Like it really is. I think it's really a load of small steps that make the difference, isn't it? Sort of, you go, I just want to put one file online. Now, okay, I want to do the next one. Now I want them to do something. Now I want the kids to send something to me. And it's just a load of small steps that slowly solve problems. And a lot of the time, I think it's workflow. If something in the workflow, like you're saying, if it makes a lot more sense, like you really are benefiting from it, then that's always a win.
I think the other thing is time. I mean, a lot of schools throw technology into schools and they expect teachers just to use it without really giving them time. And they even, at schools, they feel they're putting on professional development opportunities and they're sending teachers to conferences and so on. But actually you need a lot more time than that, unless you're the kind of teacher that either does a lot of work beyond the confines of the school day or holidays, or you're the kind of teacher that just loves tech and gets it. And if you're not either of those people, then the school really needs to be brave and say, this is something which is important to us. We want our learning to benefit from these things. And so we are going to carve out time where you're able to do these things and learn and try and experiment. And if schools do that, then they're genuinely supporting teachers. So I think a lot of the resistance is not just pedagogical or even moral fear about things like screen time or, kids getting access to stuff that, that they're worried about them getting access to. But actually it's just about them genuinely being given time to experiment.
And the time, the difficulty is also the time. Doing things the traditional way, you've got a bit of prep, you do a bit of that, and then you do a bit of this. But the time shift is different as well. A lot of the time, it's front heavy. You're prepping a lot more when you're digitizing, and then maybe at the end you have a win because maybe your assessment or some workflow there is a lot easier, so you've got more time then to do, say, higher quality stuff. But that shift of time, what you used to take say 20% of your time to prep, now becomes 50% of your time or something. Yeah. That needs to be supported by schools. Yeah.
I mean, we've got kids coming in now, and they're bringing ideas to the table. They're bringing ideas into the classroom. And once that conversation becomes a two-way conversation, the teachers are brave enough to stand back and say, okay, well, let's just try this. And increasingly they are. Then the ideas are coming from kids. When you can see that a child that hasn't been interested, hasn't been working hard, hasn't been engaged in your lessons, for the last year, suddenly come in and go, wow. And I can think of perfect examples of children that produce some of the best work that any teacher has ever seen them produce in years of school, because they suddenly found a tool that worked for them, and it happened to be a digital tool. And whether that's Minecraft or anything else, I've seen that happen, and it's hard to argue with that.
Yeah.
No matter who you are and how skeptical you are when you see that kind of work.
And so, lead on question to that then, how different audiences, so you're talking about taking teachers on that journey, but obviously there's the kids are bringing their own journey to it. And we mentioned parents as well. Is that do you have to actually lead parents of children on these journeys as well, with introducing new technology? And do you have strategies towards doing that?
Yeah, I wish we had resources for that. Yeah. The amount of times we've been talking about, just in a small circle of people at our school, about gamifying the parent experience. And we get so excited about this, like we could really help parents have. And school's a big thing, it's a huge milestone. Like for schools, it's okay, kids come in, it's just that process. But for parents, it's huge milestones. It's the first day at school. This is the first, game that my son or daughter played. And I think, helping to celebrate that and build that in, and then also adding in, like you're saying, that journey for them. Like how do we parent in this digital age, and what helps? Yeah. Wish we had the resources to really build that.
We spend quite a bit of time with parents. I mean, certainly at the beginning when kids coming in and getting devices, before the kids get the devices, parents come in and they have evening sessions with us on what school systems we use, what the school already has in place in terms of protections, and we talk about the curriculum we teach them in terms of digital citizenship and so on. And we do some of that work with parents themselves. They come in as well later in the year, and they come and get to see lessons in action, and we tend to get the kids doing as much of the teaching and the training as we can. We do work with other members of the family as well, so we have days where the families come in together as groups and go through systems together, work together. sort of stuff. So as much resources, or as many resources as we can for parents. We have, you know, one-to-one websites and blogs where we put up various articles and things about whatever it might be, screen time or, you know, online learning and that sort of stuff. So we try and educate parents as much as is possible. But I'd say that in the last few years we've been doing it, it's getting easier. Parents are getting more used to the idea. The technology is at home already. You know, it's not now a school giving the kid the technology. You know, suddenly the child brings the technology into school.
Yeah. There's a few good comments here. Lynn's was their time saved in not marking 200 kids multiple choice quiz versus time spent creating the quiz. Yep, a lot of yet to see it. Okay. Sorry, everyone. Just permission. Can we just keep going for a few more minutes? Wendy, would that be okay? Because I know the Oranges Cafe is next, and can we pinch some of the time from that? Yep. And if everyone's okay with that. Are you two gentlemen okay? Sure. Conversation. Yeah. Talk all night. Sorry, there was a question back up here. Casper Peters here. What about student data security when you use all these peripheral services? I guess when you're tying things in. So I'm guessing security is probably very high on your mind, being part of a school.
Yeah.
How do you work with that, and how do you secure these other services? Do you test them?
Yeah, I mean that's always something on our minds. Luckily, you know, with your learning management system, you know, all of these peripheral systems, the data that goes out is not necessarily you know, your most sensitive data is probably in one place, which is great. You've got maybe some sort of email or contact, maybe a name, and that'd be possibly it, and that's what we try to limit it to. So we make sure that what we're registering up is very limited, and we've got school email accounts as well. So therefore, it still only ties back to their email. So what are they getting? A name, you know, the email, and then whatever content that they're putting into the system. So we have to be mindful of that. But yeah, it is always a
Yeah, I'd say the same. Increasingly, the third-party tools that the teachers are using, kids are authenticating via Google. So Google essentially is handling all that data security, and as Andrew says, most of that is relatively limited. It's not terribly sensitive data that is getting passed across. So the more that happens, the better. That said, you know, we do quite a bit of work with staff around, you know, data security and policies, and we spend a lot of time educating staff. You know, just on that note, I mean, we have issues with things like Facebook, you know, staff Facebook accounts and that sort of stuff. We spend a lot of time talking about what should and shouldn't be put on there, and, you know, whether they're offending kids and that sort of stuff, because, you know, that's data security as well. And what we found is that a lot of teachers are just totally unaware of those things, and so we spend time dealing with that. Like we have spent time, you know, working with kids on what password security looks like, and, you know, not sharing these things and that sort of stuff. So
education is the biggest security. I think you just have to invest in that, and with parents as well. I mean, how much you know, you're just amazed at what gets emailed in. It's like, really, did you want to tell us that much about you or whatever? And yeah, the education piece is it's got to be the center.
Yeah. Okay.
I lost the webcam again.
Yeah, we've lost our webcam again. Sorry. I think we're on a place where it's struggling a bit. Does Moodle Community have a central bank of shared quiz questions? I actually don't know if it does or doesn't. I think people share things like Zondle.com.
not that we do. I don't really use Moodle quizzes enough.
Yeah. We've kind of got off topic here from the Moodle user group. No, it's good. I think it's a good conversation to have.
With the quizzes, there's an interesting thing I was just sharing just before in my presentation. You could access a huge bank of questions, but you probably can access a whole load of other, you know, questions as well, past papers and all of that. And a really neat little thing that we sort of developed this year is just the idea of screenshotting. You know, just screenshotting the questions and using that in like a Google form to make a quiz. And it's so ingenious. You'd probably spend less time doing that than trawling through and finding questions from the central question bank. But
Okay. So let me bring this back to the Moodle user group. Well, actually, no. I did have one follow-up question on all of this too. directions of learning management systems. Obviously, Moodle has been around since version 1 came out in 2002, and it's evolved since then. Where do you see the directions of online learning go? So, I guess there's the LMS and part of that and how that's evolving, but also, I guess, the bigger picture, your whole solutions. How do you see it affecting, the education of the schools, what you're presenting there? As much as you can, I know it is a tough question, but are there trends that you can see maybe over the past year, 2 years that give you some idea of what you think will be coming up?
I'll give you one thing that I think has come out very clearly from, I said it earlier on, we've done a lot of customization in our Moodle installation across ESF, and the question that they come up against again and again and again when schools are generating all these interesting ideas is how they can better integrate it with Google. And Google, I think, I don't know about elsewhere, but Google certainly in ESF is hugely important. We all have Google education domains. The vast majority of our teaching and learning now probably happens in some way facilitated by Google, I'd say. And so they always want whatever other software or platforms we're using to be as seamlessly linked with whatever they're doing in Google as possible. And some things do that better or worse than others, but that tends to be a conversation I have again and again and again. And I think that's one, because they're already there and there's so much going on in it, but two, just because they consider Google to be the sort of gold standard of ease of use generally. I think that seems to be the experience that teachers bring. And so anything that falls short of what they consider to be the Google gold standard of ease of use, Google Classroom being a good example, they get annoyed with and frustrated with. And so what they want is things that are as simple and as intuitive as that, regardless of the problems that come with that. And there are. I mean, there's a lack of flexibility with what you can do with something like Google Classroom. But I think teachers find it so intuitive that when they suddenly move on to a platform that isn't, they feel as intuitive as that, that's a challenge. So anything that increases that or moves in that direction, I think, will be successful.
I think, yeah. And I think one of the reasons to go in with the Google thing is Google's been really good at opening up and allowing developers that use of their API, of all of that. So it makes a really good development ecosystem, a really easy one. You don't have to be a top, full-time developer to tap into some of the Google stuff. And I think that's really key. So I think in the past you would never think of a school to develop their own, or they'd have to be a fairly well-resourced school. But I think more and more so now you're seeing sort of schools like you guys have done, where you fully customized, because you can, I think every school's got these fairly unique workflows and cultures and everything. And that's great. And if the systems can help to support that, you really need very customized systems. If not, if you're getting something off the shelf to be effective, it's going to have to be so configurable that it requires you to go to that depth anyway, right? And I think what you'll find is, I think that developer's space blends a little bit more into, I think the average teacher could very well do a little bit of programming or developing as well. And I think Google's helped with that. I mean, you can go into Google App Script or whatever, and you can, or even just those add-ons, and those are all just little scripts that actually an average teacher could write. Yeah. And I think that's a really interesting space where that customized, I really want to do this, and we're using the power of computing to achieve that, just as we might have done with setting up the classroom or whatever as a teacher.
I think I'll take that one step further in the sense that you're absolutely right that with Google stuff, Google's made it relatively easy for a low level or non-developer to develop some stuff effectively. But I think increasingly people want and expect a high degree of customization of systems that they use, but without really having to interact at all with anything that looks remotely like code, and let alone anything that requires them to go into sort of lines and debug stuff.